bonito par de coconuts.
This is Disney's Gnomeo and Juliet that they don't want you to know they were actually involved in. I realize I'm heading into dangerous territory since I know these movies have its fans. Gnomeo! But this was actually originally pitched as a mainline Walt Disney Animation Studios movie in 2006, right in the middle of their we'll take any ideas for a CGI movie era. And after Chicken Little, who can blame them? But whilst they did indeed greenlight the movie, they moved it under their Touchstone Pictures label, which is the kind of thing they generally reserve for movies that they don't want the Disney brand to actually be attached to, so ouch. Alas, they outsourced the production to Stars Animation, now known as Jam-Filled Entertainment. And they're the people that have made a lot of stuff like the VeggieTales DVD movies, the Thomas the Tank Engine DVD movies, Space Chimps,
David Beckham.
and then randomly, that PG-13 animated movie 9. Remember that? No, I'm not covering that this Halloween. Every other person I've seen make a video on it has that video flop. I guess it's just a bit too uncomfortable. And then there's the third party with Elton John's company, Rocket Pictures, and we'll see just how that factors in a moment. It's the classic story, minus the ending where the two leads off themselves, but instead now with garden gnomes, which ironically is probably the easiest species to off themselves. They're made of porcelain. You know, just a quick stumble and they've shattered. Toy Story doesn't have the guts to do it, and neither does Disney. Even still, they are garden gnomes bound by the same logic as Toy Story, yet with none of the intrigue of these movies, as, guess what? Garden ornaments don't have as interesting a dynamic with their human owners compared to toys.
He's for display only.
So yeah, this movie just kind of has a weird existence, and particularly after the latest Wallace and Gromit movie, I do wonder if maybe Aardman would have done something more interesting with this concept. Gnomes aren't doomed, you know? But with the movie as it stands, let's take a look. And the opening of this movie kind of makes you disappointed that it does go downhill, as we begin with a prologue that's pretty funny.
The story you are about to see has been told before, a lot.
Because whilst it's wearing its reference on its sleeve, this thing soon dissolves into just pop culture referential mess. Classic. It's this and the actual gnome death we get later that I really enjoy about this movie. That's two bits I like. So, let's go. At least at the start, you can really see the confidence in the concept, opening the movie like a play, mixed in with self-aware humor that also has an air of we have as much right to tell this story as everyone else who's done it, you know?
And now we are going to tell it again, but different.
And that feels fair. Criticism shouldn't be laid at this movie purely because they're doing something different with an age-old story. So I'm not gonna do that. The fact that they almost definitely came up with the title of the movie before the rest of the movie, however, different story. See also Sherlock Gnomes, but that's a point we'll get to probably later in the year. I just cannot imagine the reverse, where they went through all the motions of doing Romeo and Juliet with gnomes before someone one day suddenly just went, I think I got a title for this one. There it is. And as the main body of the movie begins, there are some adaptations that I quite admire here. You have the House of Capulet and Montague being two literal neighboring houses on a street called Verona Drive, where the owners are the stem of the feud. And just look at the gag with the mailbox numbers.
I've come to ruin my day.
This is why I think what we have here is a case of wasted potential, as the framing of the idea itself is actually set up so well. The gag writing is there, the visuals with the color-coded houses, it looks good. And so then we go to the Andy's Gone Toy Story equivalent scene. And it looks like in this world, the gnomes don't even risk it until the owners have driven off. Quite quickly as well, the score kicks in and it's all orchestrated Elton John songs. In fact, he's the credited movie composer for this. Said compositions being just an instrumental copy and paste of his back catalogue. It is just a goddamn jukebox score. If you've got a favorite Elton song that's not one of the main numbers, you better believe they've somehow worked it into the background at some point. What a legacy. He's in Gnomeo and Juliet's backing track. And that's just exactly what happens when said musician is the producer of the movie. Not executive, by the way. He's one of the main primary producers on the film. And quite quickly, you can see what tier of humor we're working with here, because Yeah, we're very much going with the cruder post-Shrek humor, alas the incoming pop culture fest. And this does make a lot of sense, as one of Shrek 2's director is the guy behind this, Kelly Asbury. In fact, he was involved with the first 3 Shrek movies, but less so with the 3rd one, just to give the guy some credit. And whilst I'm not a fan of this movie per se, he's worked on so many iconic movies. We've already mentioned Shrek, but he co-directed arguably the best one, was the visual development artist on The Little Mermaid, story artist to Beauty and the Beast, Nightmare Before Christmas and Toy Story, until after doing the same thing at DreamWorks with Shrek 1 and Chicken Run, that's where we then see him co-directing Shrek 2 and the horse movie Spirit. Sadly, he passed away in 2020, so I kind of wanted to really dig into all the iconic stuff they've worked on. And whilst we're going to be looking at what went wrong with this movie, I think it's at least nice to tip the cap to show how much cool stuff this guy was a part of. As per usual with these not the best movies, it is still always held together with a real team of talented individuals, and not a reflection of a lack of skill or ability on all the individuals that made it happen. So with that all said, shall we cut to Michael Caine grabbing a paycheck?
Oh, those blues are at it again.
Well, at least he showed up. And after some initial visual gags of the gnomes being bound to various objects they are either holding or sitting on, they start to weave the story in. Of course, in this version, it's not exactly a bloodthirsty rivalry this time around. It's whose garden looks the best. Again, it feels like a setup for an Aardman movie. Make this be Gromit and I'm on board. And speaking of Aardman, let's join James McAvoy onto his inferior voice acting gig from 2011.
Have you ever seen from this angle?
I of course am referring to the Yuletide masterpiece that is Arthur Christmas, but yeah, he did this movie as well. Jumping in with this, particular choice of words.
My chores. Edging.
Thanks for letting us know, James. To be fair, ironically, that's probably the most Shakespearean line in this movie. And quite quickly, the dialogue shows how simplified this take on the story is.
Show them we are better than red.
Yeah, we're going real simple with this take. It's a kid's movie, so you've got to make it easier than addition.
Red. I hate the word.
Oh, you're gonna hate finishing a book. You know what it means if you've done that. You've read it. That's a stupid joke, never mind. Editor, cut that out. Meanwhile, Michael Caine lays down the proposition for a heavy night of drinking.
You want to get smashed?
Which, if you've seen the interview clips of him circulating on Shorts and TikTok, you know he has some stories there.
Back where you belong.
And we see how even plot points like the overprotective father with sexist overtones has to still tie into the fact that they're gnomes.
Delicate. I'll show him who's delicate.
You get it? She's made of porcelain. Also, yes, that's Emily Blunt. Hey, it's a good surname for a porcelain movie.
She's definitely not delicate.
The amount of names, though, they've got for this movie is truly shocking, to be honest. Again, they're very much making the same moves from the Shrek playbook here, except now with a really rhythmically awkward chanting of Gnomeo's name as an original concept. Gnomeo! 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 Surely there are better ways to execute that. This is from the man who wrote the songs for Lion King. Anyway, want to see a pretty horrendously animated Dolly Parton gnome?
No scratching, no kicking, no burping.
You're welcome. Also Ozzy Osbourne as a deer.
No cheating! Hey, that's not fair!
Why is the celebrity count in this movie weirdly high? Why did we have to prioritize the budget to that? Does it sell the movie better? I still don't think it does, but what would I know? On to the first major Elton needle drop with this lawnmower drag race sequence. Which is initially just a fun, well-animated action sequence, and the song, you know, it fits nicely enough. But then they decide to crowbar the awkward chanting into the chorus. Guys, stop trying to make this work. Oh dear, and then they just go back to the song like nothing's happened in the middle of it. Alas, Gnomeo loses the race and they get these minions-coded gnomes to join in with the celebration.
The greatest by far.
And just to keep the celebrity count going, Tybalt is voiced by Jason Statham. Arguably an easier name to chant. Jason Statham. Which just makes the biggest tragedy of this most famous tragedy being that they didn't just keep the Shakespeare dialogue and they just never address it. Because just hearing some Shakespearean in Jason Statham's voice alone would have been some comedy gold.
Tell me something I don't already know.
Even if they just, you know, chucked it in here and there. Well, not so much comedy gold is the actual dialogue we're working with.
You just crossed the line.
The finish line.
So burnt by this peak of insults, Gnomeo decides to suit up and go full Rambo on the situation.
True. Let's go kick some grass.
This is worse than I remember, honestly.
Hello!
With Juliet also breaking out to get that flower she mentioned earlier.
It's the only way I'll ever be taken seriously.
By the way, why is that? And so we have our lead in to the Gnomeo and Juliet first encounter. I also don't think some moments in this were Emily Blunt's best day at the voice acting office either.
Okay, whatever you say.
To be fair though, this is some basic dialogue we're dealing with here. You know, this was put onto another studio for a reason. Disney knew it, and I guess all the other celebrities knew it too. Michael Caine knows it. As a result, most of the gags thus far are centering around butts.
Nice junk in the trunk.
All references,
One word. Spider.
Is it Spider-Man?
references,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2?
and references. Yes, it's another movie with a Matrix jump. A joke the director already made in Shrek 10 years earlier. I love that bit. If anything, it just makes it worse that Space Jam 2 did it again 10 years after this movie. 20 years of the same Matrix joke for you there. And another reference! For those of you who don't know, that's a reference to the most famous James Bond opening. And if that wasn't enough, they've also got Rocket Man playing in the score too. We've just gone through like 4 minutes of the movie where almost everything we have seen and heard is a pop culture reference. Arguably, I guess it makes sense since that's kind of a big gnome thing. It's butts and references. That's kind of their design usually.
Wish I could stay
But even still, it is egregious, you know? Shrek has a plot, and then references around it.
feeling like
When your plot is also pre-made and simplified, and then you got references around it, it's just, you know, it's a completely different recipe. And if it wasn't enough either giving Rocket Man, we now have an original song from the producer himself. And surprise, surprise, the original song works a lot better than the jukebox ones that they've just crammed into the score. The Love at First Sight beat's still incredibly cheesy with this full-blown Elton John song over it, but I think it's that fits with what this movie is actually going for, you know? If it was entirely this, it'd be cheesy, sure, but it'd be better. I like that recipe a lot better. Shovel it in grated cheese, please. I don't know, what is this, a pizza? Are we making a pizza dough? I don't know. Can you tell I haven't had breakfast yet? But just to add to the celebrity tally even more, the other vocalist on this song number is Lady Gaga. How did this movie only cost $36 million? What, was every celebrity being blackmailed into this project? Like, the animation is pretty basic at times, but it doesn't even look that bad either. By the way, that's how a sequel got made. This actually ended up making $200 million on a $36 million budget. Turns out, not everything has to make $1 billion when you're sensible with your budgeting. Who knew? Not that sensible with your budgeting is Michael Caine, Elton John, James McAvoy, Emily Blunt, Lady Gaga, and whoever else we've already mentioned. But still, $30 million is fine for a movie. Anyway, unfortunately, then they start talking.
Who's your Gnomeo?
Who's your Gnomeo?
It's kind of appropriate that they're visually similar to the Smurfs, considering how they also make awful puns around their name. Another positive, though, is I like that their colors are exposed when they fall in the pond. Like, that's a nice creative idea.
Why of all things did she have to be a red?
Why must you wear a blue hat?
Wherefore art thou, Romeo, is what that line is, translated. See, I'd even laugh at like a stupid joke of someone says one line directly and then someone's like, what did you just say? And then they say it translate, like, you know, a homage. Whatever, I'm getting distracted. Actually, screw it, I'm still distracted. Am I the only one who thinks it's weird that his character design has a boy band blonde fringe and a grey gnome's beard? Why is it designed like that? We also have a double Arthur Christmas overlap here, as we have Bryony the rapping elf in this as well. I have a terrible habit of bringing up Christmas in the middle of summer.
She's smirching the face off a blue.
Considering the timeline of events, did they just keep Ashley Jensen and James McAvoy in one voice booth for a very long time that year?
Your love is doomed. Your love is dead.
On to the, are they actually going to do that bit? Well,
Oh, Gnomeo. Are we really doomed, Gnomeo?
sort of. And to be fair, though the lines are silly parody ones, Emily Blunt has a game run at still delivering it. Shakespearean rhythm of iambic pentameter. Try and say that 3 times fast. Shakespearean rhythm of iambic pentameter. I've already lost. Can't even say it twice. Actually, I couldn't say it the first time. Here's my bloopers. With the Shakespearean rhythm of iambic pentameter. Shakespearean rhythm of iambic pentameter. And in case you needed proof that Disney is in fact behind this movie, they've literally got a song from Disneyland in the movie. Hey there! Thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more terrible animated movies. Disney have a few underground ones you don't realize are Disney. And hey, this one comes with a sequel that we'll do at some point. This year, next year, who knows? Either way, thank you for joining along so far. And now to the second half of Disney's terrible Gnomeo and Juliet. And you can take that to the bank, as that's where the studio would be heading if they had to buy the rights for a Disney song. Be a lot more than $36 million, wouldn't it? There was also briefly a Kermit t-shirt on the washing line next to the frog, so they've definitely indulged in it a couple of times by now. Whilst the screenwriters turned to their childhood joke book for comedy.
Ooh, you look like a fun guy.
And Gnomeo manages to evade getting caught by Michael Caine popping back up for a second to continue that paycheck tour.
Well, okay, but no mucking about.
Amongst the dad jokes in this, though, I do enjoy this one.
He'll be sleeping with the fishes.
In fact, in general, the gags in this are best when they're actually using the fact that they're gnomes, you know, the core premise.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Just like here, where the kissing through the fence trope gets cut off by it. The Shakespearean dialogue, less well worked in.
That frog was right. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
As well as the most unnecessary weight joke ever.
You know he's going to ditch you when he finds out how much you weigh.
Why did they throw that in there? You can't even say, it was 2011, as if that was some ancient time when we didn't know better. Well, clearly you can tell it's because the screenwriters are a generation up from that, you know? They're not the kids of 2011, it's the middle-aged people of 2011. Pros and cons. They also continue to just put the word gnome in all of their sentences.
Shroom, you see this face? It's a happy gnome face.
Oh, my Smurf, could you stop? Another positive thing, though, is the fact that the two neighbors hate each other so much that they just presume the other one's sabotaging them.
Outrage! Infamy!
It's a pretty good workaround for explaining all the vandalism that's actually going on. I like that. Likewise, animating from the chest down borrows the old Toy Story move of keeping it from the gnome's perspective, while saving money on having to animate human faces.
Why would anyone do this?
Because nobody likes him.
Also, here's a pairing you didn't expect. Jason Statham and Ozzy Osbourne.
So, what are we gonna do?
Damage.
With Tybalt being just a tad more of a melodramatic villain here than in the play. A shocker, I know. Alas, in this version of our tale, the threat of death from poison is swapped for the Terminator! And to be fair, this ad has a few great lines in there.
It's unnecessarily powerful!
But she ultimately goes for the Kitten Clipper, which despite its innocent portrayal, has some pretty unintentionally dark implications.
This is more my speed.
But it's time for our next reminder that Elton John produced this movie, as the toe-curling Don't Go Breaking My Heart rears its head as Gnomeo and Juliet get ready for their next date. Where we get to see Gnomeo scrubbing his butt. Was he planning on using it in this date? Why'd he do that? So many butts in this movie. And yeah, it's fine. It's getting ready with a couple of differences, because it's gnomes. Before Juliet's dad tries the old arranged marriage trick.
What you need is companionship.
With Paris, who in gnome form is Stephen Merchant, playing Stephen Merchant.
Grows better in a clay soil. It's weird, isn't it?
Right.
To be fair, give me more Stephen Merchant, please. Love that guy.
It's a bit rude to leave me on a first date.
First date?
And as with many Stephen Merchant characters, you know it doesn't work out for the guy.
I never knew you were such a devil.
On to Gnomeo and Juliet's date itself, where they find Winnie the Pooh himself, Jim Cummings, as a flamingo doing some kind of accent.
You know what it's like to be trapped?
Spanish, I think? He's got to go with what he's given, I guess, but this character just speaks at the same level every line and gets annoying pretty quickly.
We're doomed.
Not even the voice of Winnie the Pooh can make all of this work.
Why are you bringing her to a dumpy place like this?
And so yes, he's just third wheeling for the next while in a scene that really didn't need him.
He's a blue.
She's a red. And I'm pink!
What an expensive scene, Jim Cummings.
A weed by any other name is still a weed.
Mind you, even removing the annoying flamingo, the dialogue that's tackling the themes of inherited prejudice isn't what you'd call nuanced.
My whole life, my mum raised me to hate you guys.
Can't be, can it?
And again, it's intentionally simplified for kids, so our classic forbidden love story is gonna be a little more on the nose.
Red and a blue, it just...
This could never work, could it?
But it's the combination of the clumsily blatant dialogue and interjecting it with this annoying flamingo that shifts it over to bad for me.
Oh, baby, you know, I'm getting into this.
You know, there's a million ways to execute this idea. This just isn't a great way to do it. I can get over the oversimplifying it because you think your kid's audience is stupid. Kind of. Still not great with all the other things they've sprinkled on top. Don't like the base, it's too simple. Don't like the toppings. I don't like what they've added. Why am I still thinking about pizza? That's not even a breakfast item. What's wrong with me? So unfortunately for Gnomeo,
Hey, Shrew.
the Capulets have destroyed his mum's precious tree whilst he was away. Because apparently everyone else in the garden stops existing whilst he's away.
Where were you?
Like, how did no one notice this until after the fact? Everyone was still there, surely. Come on, guys. Throw Romeo a bone here. But no, everyone shows up now for the counterattack. And to avoid stronger terminology, this revolt head off to make them pay.
Every last one of them.
Every last one?
Anyway, want to see more Elton John butchering his own back catalogue?
It's a little bit runny.
And this is where the man himself turns up, as the fat-phobic frog daydreams of Elton Gnome. I know that doesn't work as a pun, but I'm just trying to follow this movie's rules. If they can do terrible puns, I can do the same. Leave me a gnome. As well as said frog in the American Beauty pose. And if that wasn't enough, here's another flash of the Mankini gnome. You know you want more of that.
Tengo un bonito par de coconuts.
Who's Spanish as well? The stereotyping's rife today. 2011. And here is our fallout moment as Juliet catches him about to terrorize the garden. Again.
Juliet, no, wait!
Leading old Loverboy to aborting the mission. And guess who's the diplomat of the piece?
Can't we all just laugh about this?
And then they try to get a sad beat out of him.
I get a little overexcited.
Yeah, you're telling me, buddy.
Featherstone!
Because believe it or not, the flamingo is our Jessie sad flashback of the piece.
But I know what love is.
When somebody loved me.
But of course, in this version, we have an Elton John song. An original one this time. And we find out that the two flamingos were in the garden of a married couple, only to get separated when the couple got divorced. And whilst I'm clearly not particularly invested in the flamingo, it does work as an emotional beat. I'll give it that. They came up with some emotion in this garden gnome concept. It does feel very Toy Story 2, right down to the choice of lighting. It even ends with the flamingo being in the damn box like Jessie. Similar beats, different story. Attached to, similar story with different beats.
But a frost, it's hard to fight.
But hey, other movies are allowed sad, wordless flashbacks too, I guess. It is artistic. Maybe it's slightly less artistic when it's so deeply inferred, but you know, whatever.
People's hate destroyed my love.
Like, that is a good line. And you may not remember the bit in Romeo and Juliet where a flamingo loses its partner to a moving truck, but it does eventually tie back into the play, as Gnomeo suggests they never go back.
Never go back?
Also, the flamingo is apparently a stand-in for Mercutio. You know, the plague on both your houses guy.
Plague on both your houses.
Doesn't quite do that here, but I guess he's a neutral party, so close enough. Anyway, we have our next "you're not allowed to kiss until the end of the kids movie" moment as...
Gnomeo, what are you doing?
Before our next, we have to replace some of the violence for the kids movie moment instead.
A hat for hat!
See what they did there? And I mean, some of it, because I forgot about this.
The wall!
That wall. No.
Oh, gnome death does happen in this movie.
Tybalt?
Tybalt can't be with us anymore.
And considering we can't have the play's ending in here, having this one moment seems to be a fair enough trade-off. Because this one death is pretty brutal. Play it again.
No.
Slow-mo this time. And when all of your warring characters are made of fragile material, it would feel like a cop-out if none of them did get broken. And despite this being closer to the play, for younger viewers more used to the formulaic main villains around to the end deal, having him die before that point is pretty shocking. I will say though, it does get very jokey again, a bit too quickly.
What is the meaning of all this constipation?
When you have the balls to do such a brutal death on screen, you want to give it a minute, you know? This was an opportunity to play this at least a bit more dramatic, but instead the zany kids movie music returns and the tension just gets lost.
Smash him back!
No!
But then they do give a game try at replicating Romeo's fake death. It's just that Juliet doesn't then... You know, it's fine, he just did another Toy Story. Followed by yet another Toy Story.
Stay. Good boy.
But to be fair to them, Gnomeo and Juliet has the better animated dog of the two, that's certainly for sure. It's only been, what, 16 years difference? And the dog takes him right through the town, which of course is none other than Stratford-upon-Avon. Had to be, didn't it? Followed by the most realistic British dialogue in the movie.
A gnome? Yeah, mate. Looks like your sister.
Ah, it's like a documentary. Meanwhile, Juliet's dad goes one step further than Fiona's parents and her tower in that he super glues her to it.
Ah, the craggle!
Do gnomes have access to social services? Under yet another score version of an Elton John song, a trope so annoying that Benny's motivated to buy that lawnmower from earlier alongside his equally minions-coded bunny sidekicks.
Here's what we're going to do.
And luckily for him, it's just sat there on the screen for some reason. This woman must have a horrific electricity bill. And this endeavor to order a lawnmower for some reason takes over 5 minutes of the screen time. Guys, you could have just left it at the shot of Benny glazing at the monitor through the window. I didn't need to see him rip off the scene from Big and dancing to Benny and the Jets on the keyboard. Oh my god, his name's Benny and they're playing Benny and the... Is that the only reason they called him that? For this moment? And yeah, it's not even just the song this time, it's the 2010s bubblegum version. But this all leads up to Gnomeo confronting what feels like this character's equivalent of meeting God.
They both die? This is a tragedy.
And I guess all statues and models are sentient in this universe. Interesting. Voiced by one of our most famous Shakespearean actors, Sir Patrick Stewart.
I like the whole death part better.
Probably the best casting in the whole thing, honestly. Is he phoning it in? Anyway, as you do, Gnomeo rides off with the flamingo and the mushroom to embark on the climax.
Juliet's in danger.
Juliet's in danger.
As our fun little Benny character prepares to go and massacre all the gnomes next door. And Gnomeo's mum does her best American impersonation.
Unleash the dogs of war!
And because the karma chameleon's never far behind in these kind of kids movie situations, Benny quite quickly loses control of it, with both gardens ultimately destroyed. Both houses have indeed been plagued here, and it leads to all-out conflict. With both hordes of minions-coded characters fighting each other. Was it intentional if it's 2011? It's only been 1 year since Despicable Me 1. Probably in production around the same time, right? Or it's the first parallel. And as Gnomeo arrives, a reference I was not expecting was the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. Or I guess for the kids who watched this first, the soldiers getting shot underwater in Saving Private Ryan is a loving tribute to Gnomeo and Juliet. Didn't realize Spielberg was such a fan of gnomes. And inevitably, Juliet is on the one section that the Terra Firminator has saved until last. Again, it's a bit more extreme than the poison, leading us to a now very over-the-hedge coded moment. That's definitely intentional. That was only 2006. This is 5 years later.
She's gonna blow!
It's that kind of DreamWorks bombastic humor, which again makes sense because of the directors behind this. And they do manage to have a short-lived version of the tragedy beat.
I'm not going anywhere.
Consistency, Romeo would rather sacrifice himself. Adaptation, instead of faking poison, Juliet's superglued to a castle and about to be squished by a lawnmower. I'd actually respect the movie more if they did just die here.
Told you so.
But I would say that. I'm British. To be fair, this movie's set in Britain. These characters, one way or another, are doomed for a bad ending eventually. They're British. But no, as it looks like curtains, with a solid 2 fake deaths for Gnomeo.
Sorry about your son.
I'm sorry about your daughter.
Following a decently told message of overcoming conflict.
This feud
is over.
And the cyclical nature of it all. They are not dead, popping back up to the tune of Your Song. What else would it have been in this movie? ABBA songs have Mamma Mia, and Elton John has 2011's Gnomeo and Juliet.
I don't know about you, I think this ending is much better.
There we have it. The movie's better than the original play.
Outrage! Infamy!
A happy ending. Now very American. And we end things with an Everything is Fine Now finale, complete with a bubblegum pop version of Crocodile Rock. Oh god, please make it stop! You can't have the song sound like this and have the word rock in it, can you? Rock has become a polished marble at this point. No edge, no grit, no, rock in this rock. And naturally everyone's doing their dancing end of animated movie thing. And then yes, the movie ends with its own bows, like proper stage show bows. Honestly, I like that. I could see more of that in an animated movie. Nonetheless though, when you combine everything together, that was Disney's terrible Gnomeo and Juliet. Whilst I have seen worse, even the weaker British animated movies have some good gags in there, but it's not great, is it? It's got some solid ideas that I would have loved to have seen maybe Aardman rework into something better, because the concept of a Gnomeo and Juliet isn't the worst idea in the world. But it's not that funny, you only really get to know a few characters, and the others are just empty archetypes or generic comic relief. It all comes down to the execution, and beyond the opening scene and the climax, we don't actually get a lot of gags that actually play with the different kind of gnomes out there. More emphasis on the EO and Juliet, and less emphasis on the gnome. I know you can't just fill a movie with that, I don't know what that would even look like, but I don't know if they even reach the potential of what you can do with a cast of gnomes. It tries to do Shakespeare and Toy Story at the same time, and ultimately scratches the surface of neither, having about as much depth as a porcelain gnome. Decent to look at, nice on a surface level idea, completely hollow. But I tell you what, it's a whole lot better than Sherlock Gnomes.
We shall see about that.
So maybe I'll catch you next year for that one. And just one final reminder, believe it or not, this movie was brought to you by Disney. It's another The Wild to me, I guess. On that note though, I'd best finally end it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell us your thoughts on Gnomeo and Juliet. If you've got more ways to defend it, genuinely I'd love to hear it. It can be a little bit more debatable with this one. It's just interesting to dissect this media, you know? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and more, but otherwise I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!